What's up, people? I am back for another video. Today, I am reviewing Hellraiser 4 Bloodlines. This one is like the it's a first time watch. And this is where I hear basically that the franchise kind of takes a dump or, starts falling off. If I'm being honest, I don't hate this movie. Um it's not great. I think there's a lot of fucking the way they wreck it is kind of a retcon how they made the box, but it works for the movie. And I think they do a good job of kind of going through. It's almost because basically it's a prequel and a sequel at the same time, and I think they do a decent job at that, where it still pulls off being a sequel, especially when we get to like the 1996 section, because it's in different times. The film starts off in 2127 with a person named Merchant. I don't remember his first name. And then he talks about when he gets captured, his backstory, and this is where we get the story of the basically the box being made back in 1796, and then it jumps to 1996, this is basically the sequel section of the movie with John Merchant. And you know how, if you remember the end of the third movie, how the building ends up basically being the box. They did that again. And Doug Bradley, as always, kills it as Pinhead. Like, every scene he carries, it's like he doesn't drop a beat. I feel like he's just as good like he was in the first three movies. So that aspect of the movie is definitely a positive. The only real negatives, the acting is pretty bad. I'm sorry. In some point, especially from the chick who played Angelique, I couldn't take her seriously at times. I'm like, this is pretty bad. And some of the CGI is pretty wonky. But it's not as strong as the first two and even the third one, but I think this one definitely is solid. I don't think it's as bad as I thought it would. I would probably give this one like a 7. I'd watch it, though in a way you can kind of end it here, because I don't know because I hear basically the 5 through 7 of the Hellraiser movies are basically they're different scripts for other movies that just get repurposed. So at least this one, it still feels very Hellraiser. And there's a scene like where you see like hell dogs, so that's what I'm calling them. They look pretty fucking gnarly. So at least like I think they still do a good job with the design. And like one of the people who become a Cenobite where they fuse like two guards together, that was fucked. Like I was like so I think like overall, I would definitely say I think this one is not as bad as I thought it would be. I would definitely give this one like a 7. It's a solid film. I think there is some weirdness in it, but I think it's still a solid entry in the franchise. And Doug Bradley still kills it as Pinhead, in my opinion. Like he still brings it every time he's on screen. It's like you can clearly tell especially by this point, this fourth one, he clearly loved the character. Like he clearly put like all his work into it. The set design and some of the design of the Cenobites, like the newer ones, look really good. I think up until this point, they still do a really good job with like the design and the Cenobites and all of that. So I don't necessarily think this is a bad movie. So we'll see with Hellraiser 5. But yeah. Tomorrow I will be reviewing the Shrek 2, which a lot of people say is probably their favorite Shrek movie. I remember really liking it. I feel like the first one, just something about it I prefer, but who knows? A rewatch, in my opinion, could change. Who knows? But I'm going to be watching that tomorrow, and I'll review it, I promise, tomorrow. And then Sunday, I will be reviewing Knock at the Cabin, spoiler. I hope, I remember, we'll see how it holds up a second viewing. I remember liking it for a new M. Night film, but I'll talk about that later. But overall, Hellraiser 4 is not bad. I definitely, surprising, I recommend it. I can see some not liking it, especially if you're really into the lore and being like, this is a fucking retcon. And there are people like that just anything's a retcon, they don't fuck with it. So I think this is fine, but let's get started here. So the movie opens up. We see Merchant locking himself up, trying to solve the Lament's configuration, which I remember like just watching this opening scene and just being like some of this, because the shots where they would cut to like because there's like this space military force trying to capture him. and like so there's a scene of them like flying to the station or whatever they're in, and my god, the CGI looked horrible. Like it looked like almost like the ship itself actually didn't look bad, but it was like everything else. I'm like, this looks like a video game. This did not look good. Like come on, it's 1996. You could do better than that. But then they end up capturing him, but then he explains why he opened the box. And then it jumps, well, I guess, flashback to 1796, where we meet his ancestor, who ends up building the box, which that was cool. I actually like that aspect of the movie very well. I think if they had just focused on that more, and maybe probably ended it with that, I feel like I don't like the third half of the movie. If I had one big criticism, and it just kind of hit me, I'm pretty fucked up. I didn't really like the third half. Like once they get to that, like the final part of the movie, it just didn't do it for me. That was where it falls off. But I still say it's a solid movie overall. It's just that part of it. But that was cool. And then we learn their ancestor. We see how it works, and when they see the people sacrifice this girl, like it's pretty fucked up. Like they don't hold back on the violence in these movies at all. And then they end up getting killed because this starts the raising of Pinhead. And then, yeah, so we jump now ahead to basically now following Hellraiser 3, where John Merchant has the building he built is based off the Lament configuration. That's why it's designed that way. Angelique rises, and she's trying to get out of hell. And I think the character herself isn't bad. I don't know if it's the actress they got or what, because I think everyone else in terms of acting wasn't horrible. It's mainly her. I feel like the acting was pretty bad. And a couple other people. Like Merchant I thought was fine, but a lot of like the military crew that you see earlier in the movie and then a bit later, they're pretty bad. So like I think the acting is mixed, because there is some okay acting and then there's some really bad acting. But I didn't mind this section of the movie is probably my favorite. I thought it was a nice little follow up there. This is where we get basically Pinhead's raised, and he and Angelique, because they have different philosophies. Pinhead basically has the old ways of hell, like he wants pain and suffering, and while Angelique uses temptation. But they have to form an alliance because they have to try to kill John, because he will basically do the anti-Lament configuration, which basically essentially destroys them. So they have to try to stop him. And Angelique throughout the movie tries to seduce him, but it doesn't work. And then, oh yeah, while this happens, we see two guards get fused together and become a Cenobite. That scene was fucked, man. Like, it looked good, too. And when they actually started fusing together, I'm like, holy shit. And just the overall design of Pinhead is really good. Merchant ends up getting killed, but his wife lives on and ends up solving the box. And then we go back. We're now jump ahead to where we were in the beginning of the film. And this is where I kind of feel like the film, not just like falls apart, but it's just some of the acting from like the military crew just wasn't, and like this feels like TV acting. But like I didn't mind though that this scene with the dogs, like when the dogs start coming and start attacking people, I thought they were a cool design. One of the soldiers ends up, they don't initially believe Merchant's story, then they end up locking him up, but one of the soldiers gets fooled by Angelique, who's posing as like one of the slave girls who's locked away in the ship. And yeah, she starts killing people. Pinhead shows up. We get the final kind of act, and just to me, this is where the film falls apart a little bit. Like, I didn't like the way Pinhead was defeated, and they did this whole. I like the idea of the anti-lament configuration, but it just didn't look good. I'm like, this just looks really bad, and it just let's make it a giant fucking box. I'm just like, no. But I do think they do a good job of balancing the time, and Pinhead is basically defeated. And yeah, I actually liked Merchant, the character, throughout the film. I thought he did a good job of playing the different versions of himself throughout the times. I thought they did a good job with that. Doug Bradley still kills it as Pinhead. I thought every scene he carries it. It doesn't feel like, oh, he's phoning it in now. And like the designs of the Cenobites still look really good, especially like the fuse one. That looked fucked. I still feel like they did really. They're still. Because that's one of the things, like, Hellraiser was kind of made from, is the fucked up imagery, you know, with, like, the Cenobites, the chains, and all that. And I think they still really capture that very well. So that's why, like, I mostly like this movie. The third act, but it's overall a decent movie. I think they still try to be creative with the Cenobite designs. But we'll see where we go from here. We'll see how Hellraiser 5 is. Who knows? I ended up liking this one. I didn't think, because from what I heard, I thought this is where the franchise kind of takes a dip, but I think it still does. Like, it's not as good as the first three, especially the first two. But I definitely won't say I hate it. I enjoyed this movie. So, but 7 out of 10, I'd probably give this. I'd probably rewatch it. This is probably, to me, though, in terms of canon, just to preemptive, I'm just going to say this is probably where it ends for me, canon-wise, because it's a good place. Pinhead gets defeated by the Anti-Lim, even though I don't like how it's executed. I can accept that's how he gets defeated, ultimately. Movie's over. Yeah, I can end it there. But, yeah. I definitely would recommend it, though. You can watch it along with the other 3 movies. But, yeah. As usual, I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. I can't wait to review Shrek 2. I'm kind of happy I'm kind of getting back because I think Shrek is such a good franchise. You know, good characters, the way they parody, like, you know, fantasy. And then, you know, bringing in Prince Charming, you know, the godmother. I thought she was one of the great antagonists of that universe, so. And the, you know, introduction of Puss in Boots as a character. So I can't wait to talk about that tomorrow, but, yeah. Cheers one more time.